All right, hello. So it is Sunday, November 19th, so it's time for another weekly wrap up. I read a good chunk. I feel like I didn't read that much this week, and then I look at all the books I read this week, and I have to admit, like, yeah, I did read a ton this week, because I read a ton every week, and I don't know why it still surprises me when I read a ton, and I don't think I did, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. But we did read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books this past week. Let's start out. First up, Bad Moon Rising by Jonathan Kirsch. So, this is a horror novel, and it starts out where we start from the perspective of this like newspaper photographer who ends up getting a call that this very wealthy, very well off family has been got some daughters and the mother found dead in the pool, and then the house is burned down, and they also find that the father is dead in there, and also his dick has been chewed off. That's how we start. So this book is not big. It's not big, and so goddamn much happens in this book. So much. There are so many characters, and they are all so incredibly fleshed out. Like, I'm talking, we get to know every single character so well. And there's so many little plot holes and plot threads that are not tied up at the end. Like, we find out the main plot. We find out who killed the doctor and his family. We find that out. But so much else happens, and you're like, are we not going to revisit this? And the answer is that we're not. Because this man never wrote another horror novel in his goddamn life. And it bothers me so much. Like, I as soon as I finished this, I went and I looked him up. And this is the only one. It's just Bad Moon Rising. And I loved it. It was so... It was good. It was weird. It was good. There was so much happening that didn't make any sense. The ending was incredibly open. Apart from the fact that we solved the main problem. We solved who killed these people. We got the guy arrested. But there are so many terrible people in this book, and they just like kind of left. I loved it. I think I had to give it a 5 out of 4.5. I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. But yeah, it was a great time. After that, with a group of my 5th graders, we read Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh, which is about this terrible little girl who just spends all of her time writing mean things about her friends in her notebook. I read it when I was younger. Apparently there are sequels, and I'm like, how is there sequels? But one of them is about Sport, who I think, Sport in this book, so Sport is Harriet's friend, and Sport is this little guy who does all like the cooking and cleaning and accounting. They're like 10 in his house because his dad is an alcoholic and a failed writer. And I'm just like there's so much going on there that I'm like, are we not going to address this? And we're not, but he does get his own book, so hopefully they address it there. I gave it 3 out of 5. I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This was fun. I have a lot of fun with Riley Sager's books. This is the second one by him that I've read. I read Survive the Night, and that one was fun too. This one is very much Amityville Horror inspired. It is about this little girl, and when she was very young, she doesn't remember, she was like 5, her family moved into this house that was said to be haunted. And it was so haunted and so intense that they left, and then her father wrote a book about it and made a ton of money, and now her father has died, and she finds out that he never sold the house, and it's hers now. And then all the creepy stuff is happening again. It was a fun time. I'm gonna say like Riley Sager is a really fun time. I have a lot of, he's very easy to read, very quick. I think he's definitely gonna continue to be kind of a mainstay in the horror thriller situation. This is definitely a horror novel. I know some of his novels kind of walk on the precipice, but I do think this does kind of cement him fully as like a horror author. And really, there are so few differences between horror and thrillers anyway. I guess domestic thrillers are a little bit different, but it's the whole thing. Or like, I feel like the word thriller has been conflated a little bit to encapsulate some horror stuff, like Gone Girl. I think if it would have come out 30 years before it did, it would have been classified as a horror novel. Thrillers were stuff like your spy books and like your John le Carre. But I think there's such a stigma against horror that a lot of the time we don't want to say we're reading a horror novel, even though people are getting murdered frequently in bloody ways. Either way, this was a lot of fun. I have a couple more. I think I have Final Girls in the book wall. I'm pretty sure I do. But I had a lot of fun with this. I'm excited to read more of his books. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. All right, then I read another book with a group of 5th graders. That is Inside Out and Back Again by thanha. This is about a little Vietnamese girl who her family ends up, escaping Vietnam during the war, and she ends up in, I believe, Alabama. And it's terrible because the children are racist and awful, but she does meet some friends, and it's a good book. It's definitely one that we're like, okay, yeah, it's written in verse, it's very fast. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read a book to my 5th graders because we're doing something. I'll put up a picture. It is Balloons Over Broadway. It's a picture book. It is about the guy who started the Macy's Day Parade. I don't really have much to say about it. I just want to point out I did read it and I did count it. All right, next we've got The Ghost of Slappy by R.L. Stine. So much happens in these Slappy World books. Like, this is the second one I've read, and I'm like, oh my god, like, so much is happening here. And this is about this kid, and he ends up going on a camping trip with his class, and his teacher is awful and brings along Slappy, and then this guy who okay, so we gotta talk about Travis and Shep. So Travis and Shep used to be best friends, but then Shep broke his ankle terribly during soccer one day, and now Travis hates him. And so Travis puts Slappy in with Shep's luggage, and then obviously Slappy wakes up and decides to make this young boy his slave. And I feel like at one point R.L. Stine heard all the criticism that's like, why is this doll making all these preteen girls his slave, and that's creepy. And so now he's transferred over to preteen boys. Like, we haven't addressed the slave thing. We're just like, oh, okay, anybody can be Slappy's slave. That's for sure. Which is something. A lot. There was a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. After that, I did read the Satanic Bible by Anton levay. It was fun. This copy also smells really, really good. So that was a good time too. I don't know. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was a fun time. Then I read Yukarism Volume 4 by Chika, Shiomi. This is the 4th and final volume in a series about this young man who is a author, and he writes about historical novels, but it turns out he's actually the reincarnation of a courtesan, a female, a woman, and so I haven't read volumes 1 through 3. This came in a lot, but I did want to read the first 3 volumes. First of all, because there's only 4 volumes, and I do want to read the entire series. There's a lot going on here, with the fact that he he is a reincarnated woman, and like all of the boys in his class are like in love with him, and it's a little weird. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, though I do want to read the whole series just because there are only like 4 volumes, so I'm like, I gotta give volumes 1 through 3 now. All right, more Goosebumps. A Night in Terror Tower. This is a classic. This is one that I read as a kid. This one is really out of pocket compared to his other stuff. So this one follows these 2 kids, and they are in London, and they're brother and sister. They're having a good vacation, and they're in London, and they're at the tower, the Tower of London, and they find out that they end up time traveling. And then when they get back, they're like, our parents are gone, and they're like, wait, we don't remember our last names, and it's just so wild. It's like Stine was definitely trying something way new for this one, and he never like went back to it, because this has some weird stuff going on here. I gave it 5 stars, 4.5 again. There's a lot going on there. All right, then I read All Heads Turn When the Hunt Goes By John Farris. So this is about this. There's a lot going on here too. All these horror novels, like, they have a lot going on in them, which makes them a good horror novel, obviously. But so okay. This takes place in the 40s, and we follow this family that has been that's like a southern family that used to own a plantation. So like, they still own pretty much the entire town. Now they hire the African American people who work on their land, but as is said in here, it's basically the same thing as slavery, because they never pay them enough, kind of stuff, and they have to buy everything from them. It's like company town kind of thing. But we also follow this young doctor who, when he was 17, he ended up finding his father, who had been kidnapped by this African tribe, to try and keep their leader alive, and she was alive, had been alive for like 200 years or something like that. But his father ended up like taking a piece of his skull out, this kid's skull out, and using it to make a fetish, which is not like a kink, but like a little item that I'm not too clear on it, but he used a piece of his skull, and then he believed that he killed his son. And our main character is this doctor who was the son of this other doctor who got his skull carved open. So our main character is the one who got the skull carved open, and he is like an illegal, like he's not like a licensed doctor, but he does. I mean, he lives in America. He's from England, and he is basically like a basement doctor. Like he'll cure you. He has a lot of medical knowledge, but he's not licensed and he doesn't work in a hospital. And he ends up kind of falling in with this family, and there's something really weird going on because the one guy in this family, I believe the youngest son, on his wedding day he went nuts and killed his bride-to-be and his father and tried to kill his brother's wife. And they do find out that this man who was getting married was just a terrible human being. And there's a whole snake thing. And if that sounds convoluted, I have not even described, I want to say, a third of the stuff that goes down in this book. Here's the thing. So much of this was written so nice. It's so weird to describe it this way, but a lot of these action sequences, these battle sequences, were deeply erotic. Like, they were like written in a way that was like the author knew what he was doing when he was writing these, and it was interesting. The characters were interesting as well. It's just, it was so convoluted, is though like it was so goddamn convoluted. Like, so much was happening, none of it really mattered. I don't know, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And finally, I read Bitter Rivals by Francine Pascal, which is about Elizabeth when her former best friend Amy comes back to town. But Amy's different. But Elizabeth wants to believe in her friend. But her new friend Enid is like, this girl is not a good friend for you, and it's so stupid. It's honestly, it is the worst Sweet Valley High book I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them, and they're all bad. I gave it 1.5 stars. Okay, currently I am reading Damage Done by Amanda Panich, which is a school shooting book. I'm like 100 pages in. It's interesting so far. I'm gonna say it's not what I expected, so that's nice. All right, so these are the books I read this past week. That is all for today. I will talk to you later, and goodbye.